Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder. Today on Sunday, April 15th, 2018, DC Metro Chief of Police, where the buck stops. Duty to protect the President of the United States. And so, Chief Newsom, we, the people of the United States, are counting on you. This is based on the fact that earlier this week I got a call from the DC Metro Police in regards to a witness statement that I had emailed to Chief Newsom because they were nice enough to have his email address on the website for the DC Metro Police. And it had to do with, so we just had to back up. Really, I'm doing this for the DC Metro Police. I plan on calling them tomorrow on Monday and saying, hey, I want you to watch the video I just did. So a couple weeks ago, I did a video called One District Court That Trumps All. And I had shown in that video that I had received order rejecting my pleading from the United States District Court, Western District of Michigan, in which it said, the court has examined the following documents received March 21st, 2018, and orders the clerk to reject the praesepe and return the documents to Robert Allen Ratluski for the reasons noted below. Robert Allen Ratluski is attempting to file a criminal complaint. Thank you very much. A criminal complaint may be initiated only by the United States Attorney's Office and not by an individual. It is so ordered. By somebody called Philip J. Green, U.S. Magistrate Judge. So at the time, that wasn't the answer I wanted from these people. It's like, okay, but what did he tell me? He said, I'm trying to file a criminal complaint. And I said, well, really, I'm not trying to file a criminal complaint. I'm trying to get an arrest warrant issued. But forgetting that, okay, criminal complaints can only be initiated by the United States Attorney's Office. So I said at the time, well, then I'm going to go ahead and send this order and a letter, which really that's what this is here, right? People of the United States, Robert Allen Ratluski, witness. To the United States Attorney's Office, Western District of Michigan, Grand Rapids Office, a notice to the United States Attorney of the office's duty by court order to issue criminal complaints. They haven't done it yet. And since I had sent this one, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and send it to the one in the District of Columbia. Because the rest of the video I had done, One District Court That Trumps All, talks about this particular court in the District of Columbia. It's supposed to have unique powers that other district courts don't have. And so the question is, are we talking about the United States District Court or the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit? Or one of the superior courts of the District of Columbia? And a lot of these changes, as I showed in the video, happened during the time of President Lincoln. Excuse me, President Lincoln. Well, as it turns out, he had a lot to do with the DC Metro Police. And so let's just read a little bit about them and their duties, right? This comes out of Wikipedia. The Metropolitan Police Department, officially the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia, is the law enforcement agency of the city of Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. So to me, it means it's the law enforcement agency of the capital of the United States, which is actually the District of Columbia. There's and, or there isn't, the district, the capital of the United States. So what does a comma mean? Does that mean those are two independent statements, or are they somehow running together, right? The Metropolitan Police Department is a primary law enforcement agency for the Washington, D.C. It is responsible for providing police services to the district, such as patrol and criminal investigations, and is also charged with the protection of the President and Congress. Before we go any further, I'm going to say, well, that's what the problem is, because we don't have a seated president and we don't have a seated Congress. Nobody's filed a frickin' law to hold their office. They haven't complied with the 6th article of the Constitution, and we'll be there in just a minute. But also, look at this. It says Law Enforcement Agency of the Washington, D.C., and then it is responsible for providing police services to the district. Well, how come they call it Washington, D.C. here, and then they call it the district, right? What do they mean by district? Because the United States is a district. It's a territorial boundary of the continental United States and add Alaska and Hawaii now, and outlying islands and whatever else they put a claim to as far as their territory, aka property. That's the district. So, as the capital of the United States, Washington is a federal district and subject to the ultimate authority of the U.S. Congress, including the Metropolitan Police. The MPD has a unique role in service local police department with county, state, federal responsibilities and is under municipal government but operates as a federal authority. You guys got lots of hats, Chief. The Metropolitan Police is the only law enforcement agency allowed under law to shut down the roads within the district and is also responsible for the protection of the President of the United States. And while you may be doing all your other functions quite well, Chief, I'm not here to criticize, except for one thing. You're not protecting the President of the United States or the Congress because there's nobody sitting there. And so we don't have a commander-in-chief, right? Us, we the people, don't have a civil authority installed. As the American Civil War raged on, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln took a personal interest in the formation of a regular police force for the American capital. Washington had quickly filled with soldiers, government employees, and citizens hoping to cash in on the war. It sounds like today. The crowds, crime, and constant threat of enemy spies had made the capital into a rowdy city barely under control. That is today. The Metropolitan Police Board unanimously chose one of its members. The first one was a guy named William Benning Webb. He didn't use a middle initial. Who was commissioned as a major in the Army to serve as the first chief of police, the formal title being major and superintendent. So the chief of police of the Metropolitan Police is a major in the Army. And, you know, it may look like that isn't what they did now because they changed the name, but until you show me that he's not a major in the Army, well, the chief of police is a major in the Army. First, he was commissioned as a major in the Army to serve as the first chief of police. And so the chief of police is a military unit that has a duty to defend the President of the United States. Chief, so let's get on with it. And so if you want to call me or email me, hey, Rob Ryder, email, scoredorecord@aol.com, or my phone number. Okay, so give me just a second to get my things together here. Be right back. Okay, so when like last Wednesday, I had penned this short little complaint that I had put on top of another complaint that I had sent to the what's the other police department? Capitol Police. Hadn't heard from them, and it was, you know, so these were just added on. I had sent complaints to the National Guard Bureau in Washington, D.C. I had sent complaints to the United States Attorney's Office. I won't say they're really complaints. I'm trying to get an arrest warrant issued, right? That's the easiest thing. I'm applying to have an arrest warrant issued for offenses against the United States, which according to a federal law, 18 U.S.C. United States Code 3041, power of courts and magistrates says all these different people can issue arrest warrants for offenses against the United States. Well, I've yet to find anybody that'll do it. So I said, well, I'm going to take it right to... So my thought was, well, I'm going to get everything I can with some kind of paper into the District of Columbia and then make it a local issue in the District of Columbia, because that's where the courts were that I talked about in my last video. And, you know, during my research, I said, hey, these guys have a duty to protect the President of the United States. I'll just tell them they're not doing their duty. And some other things I had learned. So I'll read it, and then I'll show you where it all comes from. So, attention, Peter James Newsham. He's the chief of police. Notice, state bar associations offend the First Amendment. Members are disloyal to the United States. That is true. You give up your First Amendment rights to become an attorney licensed to practice law in your state. Well, I'm going to explain why that's a problem. Chief Newsom, it is an offense against the United States to be a member of an organization that restricts its members' First Amendment rights while at the same time holding a position in the government of the United States or the government of the District of Columbia. An individual holding a position in the government of the United States or the government of the District of Columbia is offending 5 U.S.C. United States Code 7311, loyalty and striking, if they are a member of a state bar association for attorneys with rules restricting members' First Amendment rights. And they all do restrict First Amendment rights. It's actually written into the footnotes of the Michigan State Constitution. The interest of the State Bar Association is in conflict with the interest of the people of the United States. They're not serving the same master. A state bar for attorneys advocates the overthrow of the United States constitutional form of government. It is warring with the United States Constitution, and its members are engaged in acts of treason. I believe it, and I'll swear to it. An individual owing an allegiance to the United States, holding a position in the government of the United States, or the government of the District of Columbia, that would be such as a member of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia, would be committing a misprision of treason, which is 18 United States Code 2382, if they allow state bar members to hold positions in the government of the United States or the government of the District of Columbia. Please Google 18 U.S.C. 2382, and you'll see it's your freaking duty. I'm going to point out a crime to you, Chief, and you have a duty. If not, hey, you're guilty of misprision of treason. Next. Well, who's your replacement? But I don't believe it was your intention. Peter James Newsom, Chief of Police, Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. Current records evidence that you are a member of the Maryland and District of Columbia State Bar Associations. Chief, I do not believe it's your intention to be an enemy of the United States. I agree. However, if it was not your intention to be an enemy of the United States, you must rescind your membership in these organizations and order a loyalty check on all United States personnel in accordance with 22 United States Code 272B by the Director of the Office of Personnel Management to root out all individuals who are members of state bar associations or other associations that advocate the overthrow of the government of the United States, to make their own choice to rescind their membership or leave the United States. President-elect Donald John Trump has not complied with the Constitution of the United States, 6th article. Only one oath satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. The oath is found in the first law, signed into law after ratification of the Constitution by President George Washington. I think that's the 1st of June, 1789. Does that sound right? Don't hold me to it. But you'll find it under 1 Stat 23, 1 STAT of the statutes at large. Right? It's the first law of the first Congress after the ratification of the Constitution. And in that oath, it says this is the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. Specifically. If you haven't taken that oath and done what the act says, then you're not holding office. I don't care, you can say all you want. As far as I'm concerned, you're not holding office. You're just pretending. No individual has any authority under the United States unless they have complied with 1 Stat 23. Have you ever read 1 Stat 23? Have you complied, Chief? I don't think so. And neither has Trump. I didn't make the rules, Chief, but I can read them. And I make it your duty to inform the President-elect of the defect in his paperwork. Ignoring this duty would be a misprision of treason. Without a properly sitting president, no appointments or commissions can be executed, and the laws of the United States are not enforced. Make the president-elect the president so he can enforce the laws of the United States. The United States does not have a commander-in-chief until you do your duty. all officers of the executive and judicial branch have to comply with the 6th article of the Constitution. And as commander-in-chief, well, that's an officer in the executive branch. So Donald John Trump would have to do it. As there is no president, there are no federal judges. Well, how could that be? Well, because federal judges require commissions signed by the president to have any constitutional authority. See Mayberry versus Madison. It's all about the fact that they didn't get their commissions. So they didn't have any authority. We do not have Article 3 courts because we do not have a president to appoint and commission federal judges or justices. And it isn't just Donald John Trump. I mean, Obama didn't do it. Bush didn't do it. Clinton probably didn't do it. I don't know when it first started, but, you know, whatever it is, didn't just start with Bush. Excuse me, with Trump. It goes back further. Individuals pretending to be, we got plenty of these, individuals who are pretending to be federal judges and justices are not using their full legal name. The attorneys in pretend court are not using their full legal name. The parties are not named in their full legal name, and the use of an improper name of the court. These pretenders falsely claim authority under the United States when in truth they do not share in the judicial power of the United States. They are just unjust persecutors of the people of the United States. Alleged members of Congress have filed fraudulent certificate of election using false identities. This constitutional crisis was also pointed out with documentary evidence, see the attachments, to the Capitol Police, National Guard, Bureau, and now it's your turn. None of the pretend senators or representatives have filed a valid certificate of election. They did not use their full legal name to identify themselves as is required by federal law, 6 CFR 37, real ID, driver's licenses, and identification cards, which says in 6 CFR 37.3 that the definition of a full legal name is first name, middle name, last name, or surname, no initials, no nicknames. The imposter sitting in Congress filed certificate of elections using nicknames. Well, go figure. Upon which an imposter governor and imposter secretary of state subscribed to nicknames. The whole document is evidence of election fraud. Only your full legal name is identification for federal matters. Right? I didn't say it. You guys wrote a law. 6 CFR 37. Real ID, driver's licenses, and identification cards. And that's the Code of Federal Regulations, so that's administrative, and so that's your rule, Chief. The 3 branches of government of the United States have been overrun by belligerents who rape, pillage, and plunder the people of the United States, aided by states in rebellion against the Union. Because nobody is holding the office they claim they are, because nobody's using their full legal name, which you've identified as being the name used for identification. So, hey, kick their asses out of the district. Drag them by the hair if need be, but get them out of the district. It's your duty. Chief, I have informed numerous agencies about these defects, and yet Donald J. Trump is still pretending to be the President of the United States. And a Congress and judicial branch are at war, are still full of Satan sock puppets who are daily terrorizing the people of the United States. What happened here? I don't know. Anyways, your turn to bat, Chief. Please don't strike out. So, hey, that's what I wanted to swear to, whoever the nice officer was I talked to. I never did get his name. He may have left it on my machine. But when he called, I wasn't here. He called like on Thursday. And I had been babysitting my grandchildren all day, so I got done. And it's like, well, it's getting close to 5, and I don't want to talk to him now. I'm really not in the mood. So I waited and called him back on Friday. And I told him who I was and why I was calling. And so I told him, I said, look, I'm really calling because I want you to put me under oath. I want to swear to my statement. And I knew that'd catch him off guard a little bit. And he said, well, He says, I don't know if I can do that. I said, well, nevertheless, I swear to everything that I said in my statement. And for the record, I am not an enemy of the United States. I'm its biggest advocate. And so and then he asked me, well, what is it you wanted the chief to do? It's like, well, I wasn't sure if he read this or not, so I just read it. That's what I want him. I want him to do the things talked about in here. I want him to lead the bar. I want him to kick out any member of a state bar that's holding an office in the United States. I want him to go talk to President-elect Donald John Trump and say, sir, we got a few more pieces of paper we got to execute before you can be the president, but I'll be happy to help you do it. And go show the man how to become the president. Right? It's your duty to protect the president of the United States. So please make somebody the president of the United States. And then I want you to kick all these fucktards out of Congress because there's not a one of them that's filed a certificate of election that's valid. And so now I can show you documentary evidence, and that's what the rest of this video will be, but that was the gist of it. Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. That's what I wanted you to know. Okay, give me another second to see where I am. Okay, so from the top. 5 U.S.C. United States Code 7311, loyalty and striking. An individual may not accept or hold a position in the government of the United States or the government of the District of Columbia if he advocates the overthrow of our constitutional form of government, is a member of an organization that he knows advocates the overthrow of our constitutional form of government. Well, what is our constitutional form of government? Well, the one it has says that we got a First Amendment right. That's our constitutional form of government. And yet, these organizations make attorneys who can't practice law unless they're a member of the bar give up their First Amendment rights. And I'm going to share where that's written. Where is that written? Where is that written? So, in the Constitution of Michigan of 1963, Article 6, subsection 5, court rules, yada, 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 the section, and then the history, they have these footnotes when you look at the Constitution on the legislative website, right? So, it says, the state of Michigan, through the combined action of the Supreme Court, the legislature, and the state bar, may compulsorily exact dues and require association of attorneys to support only those duties and functions of the state bar which serve a compelling state interest. May compulsorily exact dues and require association of attorneys to support only those duties and functions of the state bar which serve a compelling state interest. So you can only do what we tell you to do. The regulation of the practice of law, the maintenance of high standards in the legal profession, and the discharge of the profession's duty to protect and inform the public are purposes in which the state of Michigan has a compelling interest, justifying the unavoidable intrusion of First Amendment rights of attorneys. Now, their compelling interest is they don't have the same interest as the public. They have the interest of the state of Michigan. It's its own entity. Right? It's a sovereign state, so the powers that weren't given to the federal government are either the powers of the state or the people, and the state's trying to claim them all and not give any to the people. So our only recourse is go back to the federal government and say, hey, the state's taken all of our rights. And this is the way they did it. If you want to practice law in the state of Michigan, you're going to be a member of the state bar. You're going to pay dues, and you can't practice law unless you're a member of the state bar, paying dues. And therefore, you agree to give up your First Amendment rights, or you're coerced into it. Well, that would mean that entity doesn't agree with the constitutional form of government that we have, and therefore 5 USC 7311, loyalty and striking. So that's why you can't have anybody who's a member of state bar hold an office in the United States government. That would be a senator, that would be a representative, FBI agent, judge, take your pick. They're going to hold an office. United States attorney, you're going to hold an office in the United States government. You can't hold an office or you can't be a member of a state bar. That restricts your First Amendment rights. Right? They didn't restrict your rights. Well, I guess you could be a member, but because they do and they admit it, well, then you can't be. You're not loyal. You're trying to serve two masters. All right, and so what do? Well, what they should do is under 22 United States Code 7 or 272B, loyalty check of on United States personnel. No person shall serve as a representative, delegate, or alternate from the United States until such person has been investigated as to the loyalty and security by the director of the Office of Personnel Management, OPM. Well, there you go, right? All these people are, if you're an officer of the United States, you're representing the United States. Therefore, you're subject to 22 United States Code 272B. So, Chief, just order it up. Have them all checked out and telling you either going to leave the bar or you're going to leave the United States. And so, like that, when they call themselves an esquire, we're not supposed to have titles of nobility in the United States. Yet that's a title of nobility. So an individual using the title esquire is already admitting he's not in the United States. Now, how many esquires are holding office right now in the United States? And if you look at the Treaty of Peace, 1783, and read the first paragraph where King George III is saying that he's the king of the United States of America, the United States of America being a kingdom of King George III and his successors. And he's naming off all the players involved, all the people from the United States, which would be Adams and Ben Franklin, and then some other guy, right? They're all esquires. And two of them, Adams and Franklin, held offices in United States of America, which is that's King George's jurisdiction. It's his kingdom. You would have to look at the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union to see that in the first article it says the style of the Confederacy, which would be the Republic, is the United States of America. Anyways, Chief, order one up. What else? So that was that. So let's see what the 18 USC 2382 has to say. Misprision of treason. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States, well, that would be somebody who claims to be an officer, having authority under the United States, or has, said the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Them people. And having knowledge of the commission of any treason against them, conceals and does not, as soon as may be, disclose and make known the same to the President or to a judge of the United States, or to the governor or some judge or justice of a particular state, is guilty of misprision of treason, and shall be fined under the title or imprisoned not more than 7 years or both. Well, as it turns out, when the Metro Police become police, they take They have a 30-day course. This is, again, this is off of Wikipedia, where it's in law enforcement and court proceedings. Right? So somehow those guys are judges. So I told the judge, some judge of the United States. Well, I believe that'd be Peter Newsom. He's a judge of the United States. Okay. What else do we have? Okay, loyalty check. Check that off. Okay, President-elect Donald John Trump has not complied with the Constitution of the United States, 6th article. Well, how can I say that? Well, I can say it by reading it. Well, here's Article 6, where it says, the senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all, that would be ALL, all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support, right? To support, to, what word are we using? Support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. To support. Well, in the second article, well, this is the executive, right? This is the president needs to do before he entered the execution of his office. He shall take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I shall faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. But he didn't say support. This says support. To support this Constitution. Do you think they forgot what the word support is between the 2nd article and the 6th article? Or did they do that on purpose? Is there something for support? Because this is for preserve and protect and defend, but it didn't say nothing about support. Well, but that's the oath of the president. Well, maybe there's more than one oath you need to take. Judges take more than one oath. As it turns out, that is what's going on. And the other one is found in George Washington being enacted by the President and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the form following. In other words, this oath. I, A.B., do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Period. Support. Hey, there's that word. Look, they did use it. I will support the Constitution. Well, isn't that what the 6th article said to do? We should go back and just make sure. Where did it say that? Hey, to support this Constitution. And by gosh, they wrote one just for that. And so this is 1 Stat 23, Acts of the First Congress. An act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths. And you would find out that this was the first oath, or the first law passed by the Congress. And it goes on to say who has to do it, having it administered, and the fact that then there has to be a certificate made. So if anybody's done this, they have a certificate. If they don't have a certificate, well, then they haven't done it. And I can see here that somehow they get so this is going to have to start at the House of Representatives and the Senate, because they got things to do. Right? They got their own little oath they got to take. And then once they've taken it, then they can administer all these other oaths. Right? How do you get the first one done is what it comes down to. Who's your first pro-though notary that can accept an oath? And I sent this to the Department of Defense National Guard Bureau. pointing out the same things, right? This is just one of the many complaints I sent the last couple of weeks. Waiting to see what happens. Okay, hang on a second, please. Okay, so back to the complaint. How about getting Donald John Trump to do what he's supposed to using the name Donald John Trump instead of being called Donald J. Trump? Is that too much to ask, Chief? No individual has any authority under the United States unless they have complied with 1 Stat 23. Have you, Chief, ever read 1 Stat 23? How about you, dear listener from the Metro Police Department? Have you? Just go read it. I just showed it to you. You can find it online. Did you comply with it? Where's the certificate? I don't think you have, and I don't think that Trump has either. I'm not saying you guys can't, you just haven't done it yet, right? But without a properly sitting president, no appointments or commissions can be executed, and the laws of the United States are not enforced. Well, that's simple enough to show. Yeah, again, if the president isn't the president, then he doesn't have any power under the Constitution, so he can't do any of these things talked about in the second article, which would be shall appoint ambassadors or other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, didn't say justices, judges, and other officers of the United States whose appointments are not here and otherwise provided for. And he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. We're not getting that right now. Nobody's executing the laws of the United States. And shall commission all officers of the United States. If you don't have a valid commission from the President of the United States, you are not an officer of the United States. You are not an executive officer of the United States. You're not a judicial officer of the United States. So the pretender that, wrote me an order saying I can't file a criminal complaint, he's not a judge of the United States. He has no authority under the United States because he could not be properly appointed or commissioned. It's a real problem, Chief. What are we going to do about it? And we got to cut the Gordian knot somehow. Okay. So what next? Next. We're just about done. I promise I wouldn't make this too long. Okay, if there are no presidents, then there are no federal judges. Federal judges require commission signed by the president to have any constitutional authority. See Marbury versus Madison. The midnight appointments, they called it, right? That didn't happen. They didn't get their commission, so they weren't made justices of the peace within the District of Columbia. Why? Because they didn't have a commission from the president. Individuals pretending to be federal judges and justices are not using their full legal name. Attorneys in pretend courts are not using their full legal name. Let's look at an example of that real quick because we can. So what did I do for that? It was in this fax package. So one of my complaints had to do with, right, this is one that went to the United States Attorney's Office, where I got rejected because I said I was trying to file a criminal complaint, and what I was trying to do in a application for an arrest warrant that was filed with the clerk of court, U.S. U.S. District Court, Western District of Michigan, although that's not the court that I sent it to. I sent it to the United States District Court, period. Right? Clerk, United States District Court, which, I had the address for because they had sent me mail before. And because I could, I picked Alex Jones' case that he has going against him in Virginia, making hay about the fact that, all you really need to do is look at the civil cover sheet and you'll soon see that, the attorney is simulating a legal process under color of law, and he's offending the United States. He's actually committing a treason against the United States. And I had to do like this civil cover sheet where county of residence. See, they don't put any state behind this, so you can't say what the residence is because Albemarle County could be anywhere. Right? It doesn't say it's in Virginia. It doesn't say it's in Washington, D.C., or not Washington, D.C., Massachusetts. It doesn't say where it is. There isn't any residence listed for the defendants. So how can you have diversity jurisdiction where it needs to have parties of different states? You didn't say what state was what. And you didn't put a demand. Yet you're quoting 28 USC 1332 that says for diversity jurisdiction there has to be at least a $75,000 demand. Right? Some certain. So there are all sorts of things that are wrong with this. But at the end of the day, a guy named Andrew Charles Mandrella, right, who's registered as a attorney with the state bar, I believe a state bar of Virginia. It would be because that's where this is at. Isn't using the name Andrew Charles Mandrella on his paperwork. He's using Andrew C. Mandrella. And he's calling himself an Esquire. Or actually, Andrew Mandrella, Esquire. Well, an Esquire, that's a title of nobility. What's a Esquire doing prosecuting people in the United States in a court of the United States? For that to happen, that would be like treason. So if it isn't treason, then that really isn't a court of the United States, and the people of the United States don't have to answer to it. Period. That's the U.S. court. Right? It's not the United States District Court. The U.S. District Court is a legislative court of some kind. But it's not an Article III court, so it doesn't have any of the judicial powers of the United States. Okay. Okay. Alleged members of Congress have filed fraudulent certificate of election using false identities. Hey, I have documentary evidence to substantiate my claim. So here is a state of Minnesota certificate of election for a 6-year term. And it was for, this is to the President of the Secretary of the United States. This is to certify that on the 4th day of November 2008, Al Franken was duly chosen by the qualified electors of the state of Minnesota, a senator, and from said state to represent said state in the Senate of the United States for the term of 6 years, beginning on 3rd day of January 2009. Witness His Excellency, our Governor, Tim Pawlenty, and our seal hereto affixed at St. Paul, Minnesota, the 30th day of June, in the year of our Lord, 2009. So we got somebody calling himself Tim Pawlenty, claims to be a governor, is saying that somebody called Al Franken was duly chosen by the qualified electors in the state of Minnesota. And it's all countersealed and signed by somebody calling himself Mark Ritchie, Secretary of State, with the great seal of the state of Minnesota. Well, all of these are nicknames or fictitious names or not complete names. They're not full legal names. And so Al Franken is Al Stewart Franken. Tim Pawlenty is Timothy James Pawlenty, and Mark Ritchie is actually Donald Mark Ritchie. And what did we say the definition of a full legal name was? First name, middle name, last name, surname, no initials, and no nicknames. It's a federal law. You can't get on an airplane after 2020 unless you have an ID that conforms to that law, 6 CFR 37. You won't be able to get on an airplane. You won't be able to get into a federal building. You won't be able to do anything federal right? Well, they shouldn't be in now. The law is already in effect. It just had to that date for them to do it right. But none of these people are who they say they are. This isn't their full legal name. And so I want you to have them arrested. That's what I want you to do, Chief. Right? Because if you're wondering, well, what is it I want you to do? I want you to arrest him. Because it isn't just him. If we were to look at this is from the Congressional Record, Proceedings and Debates of the 115th Congress, First Session, Volume 163, Washington, Tuesday, January 3rd, 2017, number 1, Senate, which first they're going to do a prayer, and then they're going to do a pledge, and then they're going to say, certificate of election. The chair lays before the Senate the certificate of election of 34 senators elected for 6-year terms beginning January 3rd, 2017. All certificates the chair is advised are in the form suggested by the Senate and contain all the essential requirements of the form suggested by the Senate. If there is no objection to the reading of the certificates, will be waived, and they will be printed in full in the record. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Don't say anything. Just go ahead and put them in. Right? So that's what they did. And so let's see who they put in. So like Michael Bennett was duly chosen in Colorado by John Hinkelooper and Wayne Williams. Wayne W. Williams. Well, there's that middle initial, and I bet you John's got a middle name. I bet you Michael's got a middle name. I bet you then those would be nicknames, and you can't do it under a nickname. Hey, Daniel P. Malloy is a governor. There's that middle initial. Right? Richard Blumenthal was supposed to be appointed. Well, is that his full legal name? I don't know. Google it. Find out. On and on and on. Jeremiah W. J. Nixon. That's not anybody's legal name. And I had to put up with it. You guys need to do something about this. Roy Blunt is nobody's full legal name. And so go get this congressional record and go find all these people and arrest them. That's what I want you to do. Right? If I need to swear to it, well then, call me back. Give me an oath over the phone. Right? None of the pretend senators or representatives have filed certificate of election. They did not use their full legal name to identify themselves as required by federal law. 6 CFR 37. Real ID, driver's licenses, and identification cards. They're sitting there. They're imposters. Right? That's the truth of the matter. Now, okay. So that's really all I had for you guys. Now, just a few more, to back up what I've already said. So I can say that I told you so. Right? Fordham Law Review, the intersection of free speech and legal profession constraints on lawyers' First Amendment rights. Numerous bar regulations of lawyer speech, however, have provoked First Amendment clashes, and the outcome in those cases reveal much about competing conceptions of the legal profession. On the other hand, lawyers are sometimes thought of as delegates of the state power, officers of the court, and professional licensees, whose special privileges are conditioned upon foregoing some speech rights that others enjoy. Right? So instead of being the representative of underdogs and challengers to the state and the status quo, they are, on the other hand, officers of the court, licensed by the state, regulated by the state, have to be a member to practice in the state, and you're going to do what the state says, which is not lie, just don't tell the truth. Lawyers, as professionals, are subject to speech restrictions that would not ordinarily apply to lay persons. Therefore, it is unconstitutional. Uh, Peter James Newsham, right? That's the chief of police, the D.C. Metro Police, and this shows that you are a member of the D.C. bar and the M.D. bar, right? You're going to have to leave. At least the M.D. bar. I don't know if you can be a member of the D.C. bar or not, unless we say that that's the national bar, and you're not restricting First Amendment rights in the D.C. bar. I didn't really read their stuff. But they do it by what they put in the rules of professional conduct for them. Now, before I forget, when I started all this, it was because in my last video I had talked about this particular court. It's supposed to have these unique powers that only this particular court would have. And so it seemed it would either be the one they call the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, or it's the Supreme Court, which is really the United States Appeals Court for the District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, that's the Supreme Court, right? That the United States District, the Supreme Court of the United States really isn't a court of the District of Columbia. But the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia is the United States Appeals Court for the District of Columbia Circuit. Right here, name. United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. And it has a seal. Contains the words United States. It doesn't have U.S. On the upper part of the outer edge, preceded by and followed by a star, and the word Court of Appeals. So United States Court of Appeals on the lower part of the edge, running from left to right, and the words for the District of Columbia Circuit in 5 lines in the center. I'm trying to think, well, how would they have 5 lines in the center? In 5 lines in the center. I like to see that seal. Process writs, process orders, and judgments of this court must be signed by a judge of the court or by a clerk at the discretion of the court. Okay, and so, anyways, you can download these on the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. And this is the circuit rules. And so I'm still working on this. I'm just showing it because I happen to have it open, right? But ultimately, this is a court that can issue original writs, such as a mandamus, such as a habeas corpus, writ of right, whatever it might be. And so they could tell these other agencies to do what they need to do, and that's why I wanted to get everything into the District of Columbia, so I could go to these people and say, hey, go tell that administrative agency to do what I told them to do. But when you do it, you want to do it as the United States, because the United States should not be charged fees under this schedule, except as described in 2, 4, and 5. So, you want to go there and say there's offenses against the United States, and therefore you need to have something done. Court of Appeals miscellaneous fee schedule. That's on there too. They have a handbook. Original proceedings. No record is prepared or transmitted to the court in original proceedings. Any document from the district court or agency proceeding that are necessary to understand the issues being presented must, however, be attached to the petition. An appendix may be utilized. The petitioner seeking a writ of mandamus or other extraordinary writ must remit to the docket fee the clerk of the court before a petition will be accepted for filing. Well, that's why you make it the United States is the one asking for it, because they don't pay. Right? And I'm a people of the United States. I'm doing it in the name of the country. And I want them to look at legal name and SSN. All right, so what I plan on doing is getting a copy of this, which I'll say, okay, this is a proceeding from an administrative agency, Social Security, in which it says that a legal name consists of a first name and a last name. The legal name is the name used to sign legal documents, deeds, and contracts. We do not consider the middle name or suffix part of the legal name. Well, hang on a minute. That isn't what 6 CFR 37 said. It said your full legal name is your first name, middle name, last name. How is it these people can have their own frickin' law? Because by doing this, if you were to look at the SS5 form you fill out, or mom and dad filled out, right, they put a middle name in the middle name box. Robert Allen Ritlewski, first name, middle name, last name. Why? There's boxes. They're filling out boxes. Well, they just said if you have a middle name, we're not going to use it. So while the SS5 shows Robert Allen Ritlewski, the underlying record that they make, called a Munident record, M-U-N-I-D-E-N-T, would say Robert Ritlewski, right? It would cloud the title to your Social Security account. And the way they get around this is they say you have a given name. Full first name and middle name, either of which may have more than one part. Right? So your first full name, your full first name, could actually be Robert Allen. Hey, oh, I don't have a middle name. You're saying my name's Robert Allen. And they got around that by doing this. Since a person's middle names or suffix is not considered part of the legal name by Social Security Administration, right? In contrary to federal law, they're not considering it. A middle name shown as part of the given name or the suffix shown as part of the family name can be omitted or entered in the middle name and suffix fields of the enumeration system if the applicant has a given name with multiple parts and does not allege having a middle name, then the multiple parts should be entered in as the first name. Well, who's making that determination, right? Somebody behind the curtain is, and this is how they have clouded the title to you, between you and your full legal name and your Social Security account. And that's why they have to administer it, because we've never stepped forward to claim our accounts. Right? We each have one share of the public trust. Now, I'm not saying you get to go take it out of the public trust and put it in your bank account, but you have access to the public trust. Everything's been paid for. Instead, we live in a system of lack, which is the exact opposite. So I don't know what else to say. I think I'm about done. I'll close with this. Before a new senator can take the oath of office, an election certificate must be presented to the Senate to confirm that the person was duly elected, issued by the Secretary of State representing the state of the incoming member. The election certificate is affixed with the state's official seal and is delivered to the Secretary of the United States Senate for official recording. They do the same thing for the House of Representatives. And so the thing with the fact that they're using nicknames and the fact that nobody has complied with 1 Stat 23, I got to show you one more thing on that while I'm thinking about it. Sorry. Just so there's no confusion who this would apply to, right? That this is 1 Stat 23, an act to regulate time and manner of administering certain oaths. Shall be administered in the form following. I, state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Again, it's the word support, which is in the word used in the 6th article of the Constitution. And that's not the word used in the oath that the president took under Article 2, so he needs to take this one too. Why? Because, he's an officer of the executive branch. Right? He's the commander-in-chief. That's an officer. The said oath or affirmation shall be administered within 3 days after passing this act. Okay, so who needs to take it? The Senate needs to. The representatives need to at the House of Representatives. The President of the Senate needs to. And then the rest of the Senate. Members of the several state legislatures, they need to do it. All executive and judicial officers of the several states who have been hereto chosen or appointed, well, they need to do it. Shall be administered, state such, and. All officers appointed hereafter appointed under the authority of the United States, hey, they shall do it. Right? If you take an oath that uses the United States in part of giving you your authority, the Constitution of the United States, well, then you're under the authority of the United States. It doesn't really matter if you're the dog catcher. And not only do these people need to take it, then there needs to be a shall take an oath of affirmation, which shall be administered by persons, shall be authorized by law to administer, and such officers shall incur the same penalties in case of failure, and shall impose by law failure of taking their respective oath of office. Where does it talk about making a certificate? It's in here. There we go. And the person or persons so administering the oath hereby required to be taken shall cause a record or certificate thereof to be made, in the same manner as by the law of the state he or they shall be directed to record or certify the oath of office. Make it really sound difficult. Say, hey, where's the piece of paper that shows you took this oath? If you don't have one, well, you haven't taken it yet. So let's go back and do it again. And, without doing that, this is the jots and tittles of the law. Without doing it, well, you're just not who you say you are. You're just impersonating. You're falsely assuming authority under the United States. And everybody in this congressional record, the Senate, because they split this whole Senate into threes, well, there's a similar thing for the House of Representatives. None of them have done it, and they have the same duty to take the same oath. This manual was another manual, that Handbook of Practice and Internal Procedures, United States Court of Appeal. I'm just showing this because that'd be the next place I'll be talking to, having talked to all these other people now. You're giving them an opportunity to do the right thing, such as the D.C. Metro Chief of Police, where the buck stops. It's really simple because, hey, you have a duty to protect the President of the United States, and right now, he's not in his office. He's being kept from his office. It's done on purpose. Right? This is how they keep the laws from being executed, because the commander-in-chief isn't there to do the things he needs to do. Right? We don't need any more laws written. We don't need them adjudicated. We need them executed. And the only people that can do that is the administrative branch, and the head isn't there. And so he needs to be put in office, Chief. I pray to God you do it. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. See you.